cruel, petty, manipulative, arrogant. When we first meet Cardan Greenbrier, he's exactly what you'd expect from a decadent prince who humiliates people just for sheer amusement. So why are we all so drawn to him? Well, it's because the absolute greatest lie in the High Kingdom of Elfhame is that Cardan was ever truly heartless. The reality? It's far more tragic. You see, Cardan isn't terrifying because he lacks a heart. He's terrifying because he feels entirely too much, living in a world that violently taught him that feeling anything is a fatal flaw.
Today, in this character analysis, we're peeling back the golden crown, the wine-soaked velvet, and that infamous cruel smirk to really look at the deeply traumatized child hiding underneath. We are going to explore the tragic psychology of a prince who was taught that love is a literal weapon, and discover how a boy practically born to be a villain actually chose to heal instead.
Section 1. The Performance of Cruelty, the Calculated Facade.
To really understand Cardan, we first have to completely deconstruct the mask he wears. I mean, at a glance, he completely embodies your classic dark fantasy villain archetype, right? The beautiful, spoiled bully with way too much power and zero empathy. Yet there's this massive, glaring contrast between his theatrical cruelty and his actual desperate need for survival. Every single arrogant gesture, every biting sarcastic remark, and every lazy, drunken slur, it's all intentional. He's hiding razor-sharp intelligence behind his recklessness, and a profound, aching loneliness right behind his malice. Cardan learned really early on that in the predatory courts of Elfhame, showing vulnerability is basically inviting destruction. So instead of letting himself be soft, he made himself untouchable.
It's absolutely tragic when you realize that even when he's seated on a throne wearing a crown, he's actually one of the most powerless people in the entire room. He's a king completely bound by invisible threads, manipulated by prophecy, used by his family, and paralyzed by his own crippling insecurities. His cruelty, it was never born out of confidence. It was, and always has been, a heavy shield.
Section 2. The Neglected Feral Child, a Legacy of Isolation.
So, to find the origin of those shields, we really have to journey into the incredibly dark reality of his upbringing. Born under a dark prophecy that literally foretold he would be the destruction of the crown, he was cherished by no one, checked by no one. His own mother, Lady Asha, found him completely tiresome. Think about this for a second. He was literally sustained on cat milk and left to wander the empty palace halls like a feral child. He wasn't raised with love or even basic bare minimum attention. He was treated as an utter inconvenience. Just a forgotten prince, raised entirely in the shadows.
And when someone finally did reach out to him, it certainly wasn't to nurture him. It was his eldest brother, Balakin. Balakin stepped into that massive empty space in Cardan's life to violently reshape his identity. Through severe physical abuse with the strap, Balakin taught a starving, desperate child a truly terrible lesson that love and humiliation go hand in hand. He taught him that pain is affection, that fear is loyalty. Cardan wasn't born a monster. He was meticulously, brutally polished and punished into one.
Now, from a psychological standpoint, this severe childhood abandonment and abuse directly forged what we call an avoidant attachment pattern. Cardan suffers from a profound identity conflict and deep feelings of worthlessness. He's a prince of the blood, but he feels like a stray dog. Because he operates on the scarcity mindset of a starving man, he's absolutely terrified of being abandoned again. So, what does he do? He pushes people away with sheer cruelty long before they ever get the chance to reject him. Because, well, abandonment just hurts a little less when you can pretend you orchestrated it yourself.
Section 3. Envy, Jude, and Recognition, the Mortal Catalyst. These deeply ingrained defense mechanisms perfectly set the stage for the mortal catalyst of his entire transformation. I'm talking about his incredibly complex, volatile dynamic with Jude Duarte. Initially, Cardan's obsession with making Jude suffer looks like pure, unadulterated malice, but underneath all that, it is rooted in bitter, burning envy. Jude is mortal. She's supposedly fragile and completely powerless in Elfhame, yet she possesses everything Cardan was explicitly denied. She has this fierce resilience to fight back, and she actually has the protective, familial love of Madoc and her sisters. She survives humiliation without breaking, which is a concept that completely fascinates and terrifies a prince who is utterly broken by it.
Which is exactly why this next quote is perhaps the single most pivotal line in his entire character arc. I hate you because your father loves you. In just that one breath, the villainous mask shatters completely. He is no longer a cruel prince. He's suddenly just a deeply wounded boy, grieving the childhood he never had, finally confessing his most vulnerable truth. Their entire dynamic is built on this beautiful terror of being truly seen. Jude notices the fear hiding right beneath his arrogance. She sees the desperately lonely child buried beneath the prince, and Cardan, in turn, recognizes the dark hidden ambition beneath her mortal anger. Their bond slowly and very painfully shifts from rivalry and fear into a profound trust, simply because they recognize the broken parts in one another.
Section 4. The fear of vulnerability, the subconscious betrayal.
But as you can imagine, trust doesn't come easily to a boy whose heart is encased in glass. His absolute greatest fear isn't physical pain or even death. No, it is emotional exposure. To survive daily life, he wears this incredibly heavy psychological armor. He uses wine as an emotional escape, just numbing the pain of his own existence. He uses biting sarcasm to deflect any possibility of intimacy. And he uses performative cruelty to enforce a completely safe distance. He genuinely, truly believes that emotional exposure is an open invitation for destruction, a harsh lesson that was only reinforced when his only childhood friend, Nicosia, betrayed him. Yet, no matter how carefully he crafts his empty, perfectly schooled face, his body betrays exactly what his mind is attempting to hide. Have you ever noticed how his physical tail acts as a literal subconscious indicator of his emotional truth? While he's constantly projecting this aura of arrogant indifference, his tail twitches, it curls, and it entirely betrays the intense fear, nervousness, and desire that he tries so desperately to mask. It is the literal physical manifestation of his inner vulnerability. Section 5. From Puppet to True King, the choice to heal.
But here is the beauty of his story. Trauma does not have to be the end. For the first time in his life, operating as a puppet king, he slowly realizes that his sharp intelligence and his quiet observational skills are actually incredibly valuable. People begin expecting something from him besides failure. And this beautiful shift culminates in his revolutionary decision to break the blood crown. He completely rejects the idea of compelled loyalty, which was literally the foundation of his abusive upbringing. Instead, he boldly chooses to rule through chosen trust.
He finally steps out of the shadows and into the warmth of the light. The broken boy who once wanted to passively sit back and watch Elfhame burn, slowly, steadily becomes a man entirely willing to protect it. He stops being a symbol of fear and instead steps into his true power by fully embracing his responsibility.
Section 6. Symbolism and Emotional Truth, the Heart of Elfhame.
This entire journey is so rich with psychological symbolism that completely elevates his story. Just look at the crowns. They shift from a symbol of his doom and his brother's greed into a symbol of his true organic connection to the land. We see serpents, which are the literal manifestation of that monster prophecy, become something he must physically and emotionally embrace in order to survive. And the recurring motif of the heart of stone finally shatters, proving once and for all that his belief that emotions made him weak was entirely false.
The story leaves us with this incredibly profound realization. Having a heart is terrible, but you need one anyway. Cardan ultimately learns that vulnerability is not an invitation for destruction. It is the exact thing that makes him strong enough to truly lead and to truly love.
Because ultimately, trauma does not have to become destiny. Cardan Greenbrier was the neglected, feral child born under a prophecy of ruin who made the choice to become the beating heart of Elfhame. His transformation proves that when we finally drop our defenses and allow ourselves to be truly seen, we can actually begin to become whole.
He is absolutely one of the most compelling, morally gray characters in modern fantasy, precisely because he is so painfully, beautifully human. So, I want to leave you to reflect on his journey. Looking back through his childhood, the abuse, and the heavy armor he wore, what do you think is Cardan's most tragic moment?
Thank you so much for joining me in the shadows of Elfhame today. Until next time, psychology with the fine.